Chris Collins were among those lawmakers who met with Mr. Trump. He, by the way, is endorsing Donald Trump. Very good to have you, sir.
Good to be with you, Neil.
You know, I have a feeling, Congressman, this wasn't exactly as it was billed. I mean, it was supposed to be the real powerful establishment leadership types, but not a one of them of that type were there. So what can I read into that? They either had other things to do or they didn't want to be at this meeting? What?
Well, certainly Donald Trump's here primarily in D.C. to speak to AIPAC today, and we should point out at the same time Barack Obama is down in Cuba meeting with Raul Castro. I think that's interesting visual in and of itself. But the meeting was put together, as has been reported by Senator Sessions, very short timeline of about 48 hours when Senator Sessions, knowing that Mr. Trump would be in D.C., called a group of us together. And it was an excellent meeting. You could call it an outreach to those of us in D.C. And really, Mr. Trump was thanking us for our past support and looking for input. You know, we discussed the Supreme Court in depth. We certainly discussed the campaign against Hillary, the need for the Republicans to coalesce around Mr. Trump, because we are confident he'll go to the convention with the 1237
so
or even more
as
our nominee.
I'm sorry, sir. Everyone in that room was of the opinion that he would eventually be the nominee. Were there any resistors in that bunch or what?
There's no one resisting that he'll be our nominee, and whether he comes with 1,150 delegates and has to pick up the last 25, or whether he goes all the way to 1,400, which was suggested.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to see states like New York, which are based on congressional districts. He may well carry all 27 congressional districts.
No, I understand that, but it sounds like he was kind of preaching to the choir. I mean, I had the appearance that this was going to be a meeting of leery, or for want of a better, doubtful establishment types, for want of a better term, sir, who he could win over. It looks like this group was pre-won over.
Well, no, there were a few uncommitted legislators in the room that were here to listen. He asked all of us
who were the uncommitted, and were they more committed afterwards?
Well, I'm not going to disclose the folks there, because that's not my place to do, but I can tell you there was a lot of discussion on what's going on in our districts. Mine is all about jobs. Right. Another member was all about national defense. There was also the women issues raised. So it was actually a very productive, positive conversation. And no, not everyone that was there is on the record today as a Trump supporter. And we had, as has been reported, some outside groups that attended. It was a very appropriate outreach for Mr. Trump following his wins last Tuesday and what we think will be a good night tomorrow.
Well, there's no doubt, and it's an eclectic group besides yourself: Duncan Hunter, California; Tom Marino, Pennsylvania; Renee Elmers, North Carolina. You had former House Speaker Newt Gingrich there. You had former Senator Jim DeMint. Obviously, Jeff Sessions got the ball rolling, to your point. But he does have some doubters in the party who doubt that he is going to have that 1,237. Did he tell you that he needed 1,237 to be the nominee, or did he say, as we've heard from him in the past, that if he's piled up this many delegates, he might not need that 1,237?
Well, I mean, certainly we discussed, what if he shows up with 1,100 and the next member has 700? To me, that's a fait accompli. Obviously, there's a rule that some may be trying to change about having a majority of delegates.
That's not a fait accompli. You either have 1237 or you don't. Was he saying, and were you saying here, that if he had 1,100, that's good enough because the closest guy is hundreds of delegates behind?
We did discuss if it was 1,100, 1,125, we can't imagine any scenario that they're going to reach back and take somebody who's got 400, 500, 600 delegates and call that a good day.
But you realize that there is a process of that 1,237 is half the delegates plus one. Someone has to get there through multiple ballots if need be. Probably would be a front-running position for Mr. Trump, but he doesn't have that nomination until he has that, right?
Well, that's certainly true, and that's why we're hoping that he really racks them up in Arizona tomorrow, and he racks them up in Wisconsin and New York and Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And if those turn out the way we expect, then I think people will realize it's time to unite to defeat Hillary Clinton, you know, so that we can, in fact...
I'm sorry, I just want to be very, very clear. None of you said in that meeting, nor did he, that the 1,237 was unnecessary, that in the end, he would have to get that, and then he would be the nominee. Anything short of that, he technically is not the nominee. Did you agree on that?
We certainly agreed with that. There would be a process. We all have the same confidence If he's got 1,125 and the next person has 700, the party will see the logic of supporting someone who has won the north, the east,
no, it won't
the
at all.
southwest.
No, it won't at all. I mean, you either get 1237 or you don't. You're right. He has a substantial lead. He could go into the convention with a substantial lead. I just want to be clear, and maybe you can clarify it for me, that 1,100 will be good enough because he has such a big lead. Everyone was on the same page that in the end, Mr. Trump, you're going to need that 1237.
Oh, sure.
Right?
He has to get to 1237.
Okay.
No two ways about it.
Understood.
No two ways about it.
All right, Congressman, thank you very, very much.
Yes, anytime, Neil.